Hello everyone. In this video, I am going to convert this display object into a more Sci-Fi model using Blender and Fluent 1.4 and a few other add-ons. Here is what we will be creating. I will not be going over materials or UV mapping in this video. Hope this helps others become more productive and helps with creative thoughts. So please enjoy. Thank you. So basically I'm going to start with this square section of the monitor and actually add in fluent objects. So I'm going to create. I'm going to use a circle and pull out a section. Make sure it's the right size I want. I'm going to pull it out and right click. Okay, so now I'm going to add another another creation. Create it. Get the right size, pull it out. Okay, so I like the shape. Now I'm actually going to turn it to the side, see what it looks like. Basically looking at what I want to do here. So I'm not going to move it with the G key, and I'm going to move it on the X axis, move it in. Okay, left click. Now you can use the middle mouse button to rotate it around, see what it looks like. Now you need to hit the right mouse button to make the object. So now I'm going to apply all the modifiers to this object. And to do that, I just need to go into operations and using HardOps program to do a smart apply. If you don't have that, you could always go in and start from your top and work your way down on a modifier list. That way I can go back in and now create a circle loop on this object to make it easier to actually apply a circle onto this object for the edges. So now I'm going to go to edit mode and actually start adding in sections of the edges on this object, basically 3 of them. This way actually you can go back in and now create a loop. So that's the idea of it. So I'm going to select the section in the middle here. So I select the square. Then basically you right click and you go to loop tools, and there's going to be a circle tool there. So you see it makes a perfect circle. Okay. So now I'm going to select the other side as well. Go polygon. Whoops. Again, loop tool, circle. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do one of these at a time. Extrude out. That looks a lot better. I'm going to actually add a line to the end to make it sharper, both sides. Select the polygons again. We're going to delete them. I'm going to go around and actually select the points, edges, and then I'm going to hit the F key so I can actually create a polygon. And we use the inset tool to go in. And now I'm going to actually extrude inward. Okay, looking good. So again, I'm going to do it again. This way when it'll actually be nice and sharp. So I'm going to add some edges to this thing. Okay, so now I'm actually going to cut the center polygon out, and actually no, I'm going to actually take and knife it. So I'm going to go to points and cut across. This way I can actually subdivide this object to make it nice and smooth, and that's the plan. Alright, so I'm going to make these into 4-point polys or 3-point polys. Again, select it. hit the spacebar, select it to points, hit spacebar. See, now I'm actually going to select the 3 sections and delete those edges. So I'm going to dissolve edges, right mouse, dissolve edges. So now I got 4-point polys all the way around. Okay, looking good. So now I'm going to add the modifier subdivision on this object. So you can see there's a little bit of issue on the center, of course. But the thing that's sticking out is really looking good now. So now I'm going to take this object and take away the subdivision again. So I'm going to exit to get rid of it. I like to duplicate the other side so it's the same. So I'm going to go to Hard Ops, actually, another plugin, really great program to have. And basically, I'm going to mirror it on the other side so that way it's exactly the same on both sides. All right, that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to apply it. Now it's one object. What I'm going to do is get rid of the top poly. I'm going to go in there and actually take away the center polys and delete it. Faces. And now I'm going to go in and select the edge and the points, basically, and hit the F key. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to actually take this one polygon and basically inset it. So I'm going to hit the inset key, bring it in, okay, that's about where I want it. Now I'm going to actually extrude it inward. Okay, let's try to make some nice looking design. I'm actually going to go back in and keep insetting it so I can create the polys. I'm going to sub-D this at the end. That's what my goal is. Basically right now I just scaled that inset in a little bit more. Okay. And I'm actually going to use the knife tool to create some more sections. I'm going to make this all into 4-point polys. That's what I'm doing here, or 3-point polys, and then make them into 4. So make sure you have it selected. Hit the space bar. Right, so basically I'm going to do every 4th one. So I'm going to do basically center sections. You bring it in and hit the space bar. Centered, space bar. Continue to do this all the way around. Okay. So now basically I'm going to do every 3rd one to make it into a 4-point polygon. Going to continue to do this all the way through. Each time hit the space bar. Make sure they're highlighted when they actually select. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward this. Actually, here's a section here that's 3 points, so I'm just going to make it into a 3-point poly. Okay, so there's another one that was a 3-point poly. So basically, I'm going to have to go back in and take those little the edges off of those to make them into 4-point polys. This way, it looks much nicer when you're actually doing the sub-D. So here I'm going to select that edge and delete it. And then the other edge there, delete it. Dissolve edge, if you want to call it that. If you now hit sub-D again, see what it looks like. go to object mode, turn off the thing. Sometimes this thing happens where it causes a weird line system on your poly. It doesn't render with that, so it's not a problem, but it just happens sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to add some more edges. So when it sub-Ds, it actually looks much tighter. Basically go around all the areas where I just created. Well, there's a good place to add some more details too on the back side. Alright, so again, hit the sub-D surface, the modifier pad. Go to object mode, turn that off. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, that looks much better, as you can tell. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, so that completes that. So basically, I'm going to go to the side view now and take a look at it. It looks really good. Alright, so now I'm going to take the sub-D off, see what it looks like without it. Still looks really good. Okay, now basically I'm just going to remove the sub-D from the modifier panel. Okay. So now I'm going to actually add in the creation with Fluent 1.4. And I'm going to actually add it into the center of this thing to add a knob to each end. It's basically what I'm doing here. So now I'm creating it using the C key. Okay. Okay, so now I'm just going to start doing some adjustments. Okay, left click again, hit the radius, just make it bigger. There we go. It looks much better. I'm going to actually add a little bit more of the edge to it, so I'm going to actually add the second bevel, tighten it up a little bit more. Fine details. Okay, there we go. That looks much better. It's the basically the cap. So I'm going to mirror this on the other side. So now that I like the edges on these two pieces, I'm going to actually right click to accept them, which is not showing here, but I did do that. I didn't get that for some reason on the video. So once that's accepted, so now I'm going to go in and actually take these sections here and hide them. Gotta have that selected to be able to select something. So in here, here, and here, I'm going to hide these. Okay, so now I'm going to actually go in and take all this stuff and actually bring it into another Blender file, so I don't have all this excess stuff in the way, to make it easier. So now I'm going to select each of these sections so I can bring it to the other Blender file. Okay, so first the base, and then the little components. Continue to use the Shift key. We'll copy those. Then I'm going to use the middle mouse button to push. That will create another version of Blender. So delete the block, go to collection, and then hit paste. And sometimes other objects might come in, but that's okay. Just select all of those and delete them. Okay. This is what I'm going to start working with now to make my newer monitor. So one thing I didn't have originally was those two pieces plus the edges. I didn't copy those over originally, so I went back in and copied them and then pasted them into this version. So now I'm actually going to separate out the main screen from the actual monitor. So I'm going to select the polygon, and then I'm going to separate it out so it becomes its own object. Okay. So now I'm going to hide the outer edge of the monitor. So I select it, hide it, and now I'm actually going to go in and select a few other things to hide. Alright, so now I've just basically got the base of the monitor thing as well as the collar. So now I'm going to hit the number pad number 1 to go to the side view. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use the grease pencil to kind of define what my shape will kind of form to. So I'm going to actually create a couple areas where I want the rotating devices to be, and then relay it out. Again, this is very rude, just something to give you some ideas of what you're doing. Okay, this way you can see how this is going to look, at least somewhat, and if it works for you or not. This is a really good way to lay out some lines to see what your thoughts are, if that's going to work for you or not. Okay, so now going back to the 1 number pad to go to the side view. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and actually add in some circles. So that would help me define my shapes. Okay, so rotate the circle on the right axis. So we'll go back in and put in 90 degrees on the angle on the X axis. And now I'm actually going to scale this down so it's similar to the shape that I'm looking at. And then I'm going to use the G key to move to the place I want to put it, which is at the center of the gear. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, now I'm going to go back in and readjust it. Scale it down again. Bring it in. Center it. Okay. I'm going to copy it and paste it again. And then I'm going to use the G key to move it. Put it in a second location. Scale that one up so it's more of the outer edge. Okay. And I'm going to copy and paste it again. Bring it over to the other one. Looking good. Copy and paste again, and then put it there. Alright, so now you got 4 of those circles throughout. And go in there and scale that one down. Center it on that pivot point. Okay, probably been easier if I would have scaled in the first place. That looks good. Again, I'm going to basically just try to reline it up. Okay. So now I'm going to scale again. Okay. That looks good. So now I'm going to go back to the grease pencil and basically hit the erase section, and then I'm going to go in and just erase all that so I don't need to see those anymore. Okay. Alright, looking good. I'm going to recenter this so it lines up in the center. Okay, now I'm going to go in, select the other, don't select that one. Okay, so I got all 4 of those selected. Edit mode. Okay, I'm going to make those into polys, so I hit the F key. Becomes a poly. And then I'm going to union those together. Union these together. This is all being used with the Bool Tool, which just comes with Blender. You just have to add it on the system, which I've showed in other videos. Okay, so all 4 of those now are one object, basically. So everything else can be hidden. Okay. Alright, so now I'm extruding these out so I get a shape. So again, I'm going to select the grease pencil. I'm going to go from point to point to see how that's going to look, just to help me line this up. Again, I'm going to center off the main centers. And continuing to do this. Basically doing this with all of them. Center point, out. So I can see the actual angle. Okay. Looking good. So I'm going to go into transparency mode so I can select all the points as needed. Make sure it goes all the way through. Do it again. Okay, select them all. There you go. So now I'm actually going to delete the edges. There we go. And now we have some extra points I need to get rid of. So I'm going to select those and delete vertices. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the other side of this object and actually get rid of the other side of those points. So that way I can actually extrude these things together to make a smooth transition. So here I'm actually selecting the edges and deleting them. Okay, getting these sections here, take away the back piece. Same here, take away the back piece. Okay, delete those. Okay, so now I'm going to actually select each of those edges and then I'm going to bridge them. Okay, there's that one. And now bridge this one too. Okay, so now I'm actually going to take the edge and turn it into a poly with the F key. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to separate this object from the other object. So I'm going to basically use this to create multiple sections as the same as this one. Okay, I'll select this one. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it, basically what I'm doing here in a couple different places and readjusting. So copy, paste, and then rotate. Try to get the right angle here. I'm going to maneuver this with the G key. Scale it up a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to move it into place. Rotate it a little bit more. Okay, just got to move it up a little bit more. Okay, now move it. It's good. So I'm going to copy and paste it again. For some reason the copy did not work, but that's okay. Move it back into place. Okay, looks good. All right. So I'm going back in. Going back to object mode. So we're going to bring another one of these over and rotate it. For some reason I must have deleted the other one by accident. Okay. So I'm going to scale this out, rotate it. Okay, move it in position. A bit bigger. Okay, looks good. I move it into place. All right. I'm going to select these other ones and delete them. Okay, so now I'm going to adjust this a little bit more, make it a little bit bigger, scale it up, S key, and now reposition in place. Just trying to get it to where I want it to be. A little bit bigger. Replace it. Okay, that looks better. A bit more rotation. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and select the polygon on the side there. Hit the F key. And now I'm actually going to separate this from the rest. Okay. I'm going to select all three sections, and then I'm going to select the inverse and then delete those. So basically I'm going to go in and select each of those. Invert, delete. So now I'm going to select the drawing tool and hit the erase tool and delete, basically erase these things so I don't need to see them anymore. Then I'm going to take those sections and realign them, basically is what I'm doing here. Went to the top view, control number 7 on the number pad. So I hit the G key here to maneuver. Okay. And now I'm actually going to take the top piece and line them up so they're together. Well, first this piece I'm going to move down a little bit. And then I'm going to take the top piece and line it up with the bottom piece. Okay, G key. On the Y. Okay. Looks like it's lined up really good there now. Okay. So now I'm going to go to the Bool Tool and union those two together so they're one object. Okay, so now I'm going to actually take these two sections and extrude them. So I'm going to edit it, pull them out. Okay. That's where they line up together, basically what I'm doing here. Okay, go back to object mode. So now I'm going to use Fluent again. I'm going to go in and use the cut tool, use the C for circle. And I'm going to create an area here for the rotation area. Okay, I'm adjusting it. Now, it could go in or out depending on how you turn it. So I'm going to turn it the other way now so it actually cuts through. And now I'm going to adjust this by moving it. The G key. Okay. Try to get it evened out. Okay, looks good. F key. Okay, now I'm going to adjust the radius a little bit. I'm also going to go and also change the resolution. Basically bring it down a little bit. Way too many cuts in that. I'm going to do around 40. 40 is good for this size of object. You can do real close up. You want to do higher, of course. Depends what you're doing. Okay. Second bevel just to see what that would look like. Okay. Going to hit the right mouse button to accept. Okay. Looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to actually create another hole and use the cut tool and Fluent again on the top section to create another area for rotation. So again, C key, I'll push it through. Okay. I'm going to move it with the G key, line it up. Okay, looks good. Use the right key. I'm going to actually do another cut with the S key. I'm going to cut some sections of this out. Give some design to it. I like it. Okay, accept it. And pull through. Right click and pull through. Okay. When you do these, you should always look at the detail to see if you're causing any real problems with the mesh or not. It's kind of hard to fix these things if you go too far sometimes. Always look at the detail after I do a cut, just so I don't have to go back and redo things from scratch. Okay, so now I'm going to go to top view and actually cut a section of this so it's not so wide. Use the rectangle tool, R, cut across. Okay, get where you want it to get, and now pull through. There you go. All the way there. Okay, that looks good. Okay, I like the object, so now I'm going to basically right click and accept it, and that little distortion thing went away, which is good. Sometimes you're left with something you got to deal with, sometimes you don't. So you got, again, you could always undo if you have to. Okay. So now I'm going to actually create some more cuts into this object using the S key, fluent again, getting a chunk there. Okay, right click, go through. Okay. Now going back to the side key, side view. So now I'm going to actually cut a section in the center of this thing to give it some different look to it. It's great to experiment and try to figure something that might look really, really cool. Okay. A line there, a little bit up. And extrude it one more. Okay, right click, run through. Okay. It's kind of hard to tell in the corner what's going to happen to that when you accept it. So I'm going to bevel a little bit. Put a little bit of a smoothness to it. That's a little bit too much, a little bit too less. Okay. Sometimes it distorts. Okay, so now I'm adjusting a little bit more. Okay. That looks good right about there. All right. So now I'm going to the top view, and then I'm going to hit the G key and pull it through on the Y. Okay. Looks good. Okay, just looking at it. Okay, now hit the right key. There you go. All right, that looks good. So now we're going to basically hide a few things. So see how this is looking with the existing objects. So, and hit the screen itself, and I'm actually going to hide the circular thing. Everything's supposed to run in through. Okay. And realign this stuff. So I'm actually going to move this, bring it in on the Y. Okay, and with the G key. Okay, top view, side view. Okay, now I'm going to actually zoom in, see what I'm doing. I want to center that off of that. So I'm going to maneuver this a little bit. Get centered. Okay. That looks good. So now I'm going to actually go in and select the actual Bool Tool that was cut into this object. So that way I can actually go in and rescale it. First, I'm going to do a little bit of adjustment first, of course. Lining it up. Trying to center it off that pivot. Okay, so That's the object that's cutting through it. Basically now I'm going to scale it down so the hole closes down. Okay, it's looking good. Okay. I'm going to do some more cuts. So I right clicked. Okay, just go and do a cut. So at the bottom section here with the S key. Just want to cut, go across, come back out. Okay, right click and go inward. So you have to move around to see what you're doing. All right, looks good. So right click, let's go back to it. And another cut. I'm on top, cross, another angle. Okay, right on the edge there. Right click, again, pull through. Okay, looks good. Right click. Okay, it's looking good. Take another section right here out. And get rid of that totally. Just want to get that shape out of there. Right click, pull it through. Okay, that looks better. Okay, right click, accepted. Okay, that's looking much better. So I'm going to take this object and I'm actually going to double it to their side. So I'm going to go back in, use the hard ops mirror tool to this. Okay, so now I'm going to mirror it, and I'm actually going to select the object again and actually add the modifiers. So that way I can actually go in and start modifying the object itself by moving it. So I'm going to select the whole thing with Control plus button, all the polygons. So now I'm going to go to the top view with number 7 on the keypad. And I'm actually going to move this with the G key on the Y so it lines up. Okay, that looks good. So now we got everything more centered as it should be. Okay, now I'm going to actually add a plug for this. So I'm going to go in, add a creation tool on Fluent, select the center of this, pull it out with this circle. All right, get a little bit bigger than the actual object that's there. Kind of like so it fills the line. Okay, go back a little bit. Stop about right there. All right. So it looks good. I'm going to right mouse click to accept. But first I'm going to adjust this on the Y key. Okay, I'm going to rescale this. And move it. G key. looks good. Now I gotta do the other side. Select the object again, go to edit mode. This time I'm going to move this over as well. Go to the number pad number 7, so I can move it on the Y. Okay, that looks better. Line it up. All right, looks good. Back to object mode. That's pretty much it for that. I'm going to actually go in and edit this. I'm going to hit the mirror key, hit the other side. There we go. That looks good. Okay, I'll right click to accept. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and basically delete this object. I'm going to actually just take the one that's already been built down below and realign it. It's pretty much already been made. It'd be just as easy to do that. So I'm going to delete this and replace it. Okay, so I'm going to copy it. Then move it up. And rotate it. Rotate it, move it up. Scale it up. Okay. Rotate a little bit into the place. Okay, let's go down just a little bit. Alright, it's looking what I want to look like. It's looking better. Okay, so I'm actually going to take some of the edge away from this so I can start manipulating it again with no extra edges. So basically take away the bevel. I'm going to go in and select each of those lines around it. Just keep the bottom lines. So double click. And keep doing that all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to continue to go around the object and select all the edges. So I'm actually continue to go around and just basically keep the bottom edge so that way it's pretty much all even around the whole object. And you got to zoom in a little bit. Keep using the double click shift key as you go through it. Okay, so now I got everything selected but one. I still got to add another one. Okay, now hit the delete key and select dissolve edges. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go in and select the polygons on each side of this object. Actually, I was going to do one first. I decided to do both at the same time. So I'm going to turn around, select the other side. Okay, going to hit the inset faces. Bring it in. Okay. It's going to be a little bit different look than the other section. Okay, now I'm going to delete the other side. Hit delete. Delete faces. Select the whole object. And now I'm going to start knifing the object to add some detail. And you got to make sure you use the Z key to cut through. If you don't, it won't cut all the way through. Okay, so now I'm going to continue to cut in more sections with the knife tool, just to give it some more detail. I'm going to put a line over there. Again, make sure the Z key is selected. So it cuts through. Okay, let go. I'm going to add some more detail to the center. Keep knifing this. Okay, so now I'm going to actually select these other objects and hide them so I can see what I'm doing with the H key. Go back to edit. Now again, I'm going to select the centerpiece, cut through, way around, to give it much better detail when I'm cutting through this item, through this object. Sometimes I click in the middle first and then go down, then click again. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the object mode. I'm going to start using Fluent to add some more detail to this object. So I'm going to actually cut with the S key. Put in some cuts here, similar to what we did above. Okay, just going basically a little bit above the edge there. One thing about Fluent is it actually creates the bevel for you afterwards. That's why I took away the other bevel. So I'm going to pass it through. Okay. So now I'm looking at the detail. Looks good. So hit the right mouse button to accept once you like what you see. So that way it actually will make the changes. You've always got to do the right mouse button. See how that looks? Okay, looks good. So now I'm going to continue to work on this object. Again, continue to hit the F key to bring up the Fluent. Okay, another section. There's a decision you want to make is how do you want it to look. Sometimes you have to go back and redo it or readjust. Okay, I'm going to continue to cut through this object and add the details. Okay, now go to the side view to see. And go back to the 1. Now I'm going to just adjust it with the R key a little bit to rotate it a little bit. The bevel itself. Keep cutting. I'm keeping the cuts displayed, and I did that into preferences so that way I can go back as I need to adjust those. To me, it's easier to hide them later. Okay, keep cutting through. So now I'm adding an array here, and I'm actually using the S key to offset. And I'm using the G key to move it down a little bit. As I'm doing it, I'm watching the detail kind of separate out and see where it looks good. It won't be too aggressive. Okay, that looks good. All right, I'm liking this. Now maybe a little bit of detail on the bottom section. Continue to save these as you go. Okay. Back to the 1, so you're in front of it. Again, use the F key. Just go ahead and cut again. Use the cut tool. Use the shape tool with the S. Pull it out. Okay, right click. Go through. Alright, it's looking good. Okay, now, and go back to the number 1 on the keypad for the side view. take a look at it together. Okay. Get rid of some of those other ones that were there before. Hide some of these things. Basically hiding all these things out of the way so I can see better. Okay. So I'm just repositioning this a little bit better so it's centered. So I'm going to go through the see-through key so I can see a little bit better. Make sure it's centered. Okay, now I'm going to use the F key again. Go in and actually add a circle tool. A circle with a C to cut through. Actually down the center. Okay. Take that off, see what it looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the modifier section and change the bevel a little bit. So I'm going to go to the outer bevel section and go down to the area that actually shows the amount bevel. So right there on the offset, I got 0.01, so I'm going to change it to 0.005. So about half of that edge, so that way I'll give it a little bit harder shape, edge to it. Okay. So now again, go to the number 1 on the side view. Take a look at it. So now I'm going to select that piece and basically hide it. I'm going to make another section between those two areas. So that's my goal right now. So I'm going to line it up on the center of this. You pretty much got a center section already, so I'm going to use the F key again, create, and I'm going to use the C to actually create a disk. So I'm going to create something there that will go through. So I'm actually going through. Okay. I'm going to use the G key to move it, center it. Okay. Okay, now I'm just aligning this, make sure it looks good. Okay. So now I'm unhiding a bunch of the objects and seeing how it looks with the arm. Yeah, it's looking good. I'm going to hide these the sections so I can see what it really looks like. Okay. That's looking good. So I'm going to go to Smart Apply now so I can actually modify this. Once I went through the Smart Apply, now I'm actually going to go in and take off the second mirror. Just go ahead and delete that. And then go to the weighted normal. So now I'm going to delete the weighted normal. I'm going to go to the outer bevel and actually change that to 0.3 offset. Hit it, enter. Okay, that looks much better. All right, that looks good. Apply. So now I can actually manipulate this object. Okay, now that I have the object, I'm going to go to edit mode, select the whole thing, and I'm going to scale it in so that way the edges are right on the edge of the other piece. So that way it'll actually work like it's part of, or not part of that object. All right, that looks good. Both sides are centered, so it comes out just the way you want it. Okay, now I'm going to add some more detail to this object. So basically center, zoom in. Okay, now I'm going to actually add in a loop cut. So I'm going to take that and move it in. Okay, same thing here. Bring it all the way in. So we're close to the edge. Okay. That looks good. Same thing on the bottom. Real simple to do this. Okay. Here we go. So now I got it lined up. I'm going to keep the center exactly the same width, and the intersections is what I'm going to try to scale down. So now I hit everything so I can see what I'm doing. Go back to edit mode again. Select the polygons. So you got the right selection box. Double click on the line. Shift key, double click on the line. Okay. There you go. So now I'm going to hit the insert faces and pull it in. Okay. Looks good. And now I need to scale this in. So I'm going to go to the scale key. So hit number 1 on the number pad and scale it in. I'm going to go to the numeric section so I can actually adjust that. So I'm going to go 0.7. I can always readjust this if I don't like it. And then on the z-axis, so x-axis and the z-axis 0.7. We'll do the y-axis, it's going to go the center section, which I don't want. Okay, here we go. That's looking good. So now I'm going to add some more loop cuts into this. So we add some more detail to the object on the inner and outer. I'm going to continue to do this on all edges. That way the texturing will look good and everything will look great. All the way up. See, that looks good. Compared to the other side, you see a lot better lines because of that. So now I'm going to go to the add-on, which is Fast Carve, and add the same stuff to the other side. It's a real great tool for basically mirroring it. Negative Y key to make that happen. This is actually online. You can actually download that. I've explained to where to get that before. It's a really good add-on to work with the stuff. So I've added a little bit more detail to the edge. Okay. It's looking good. I think I've got all the ones I need. Maybe a couple up there. Go back to object mode again. So anything that you've done, again, hit the negative Y key. There we go. That looks much better. Okay. See how it looks with everything else? Okay, so now I'm going to select the object and I'm going to do a little bit of editing of the object. So I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to select the polygon. So I'm going to double click on the edge. Okay. So I'm going to use the G key and actually move it on the y-axis just a little bit. Okay. Now go back to object mode. So basically this is not completely straight or in the center. That's why it's still into part of this object. So I'm going to have to go in and modify this a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go so I can see. Go to edit mode. Select the top polys, see-through mode, so I can select them all. Okay, So now I'm going to move this downward toward, so I can actually get it between those sections. So again, I'm going to move this on with the G key on the Y. Okay, that's centered. Okay, go back to object mode, and go back into so I can see what I'm doing. That looks better. Yep, that looks much better. Okay. So I'm going to select the other Bool tools, the cutting tools, and actually hide them. Okay. All right, so it looks much better. So now I'm going to actually add some more detail. So I'm going to select these sections between, and basically go all the way around. Use the middle mouse to kind of maneuver around. Continue to do this. Sometimes you gotta hide some things, get them out of your way to do this properly. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm going to bevel this in, give it some a shape to it, give some lines to it so it's not just squarish. This looks like a regular tube then otherwise. By adding this extra detail actually will give a lot more sci-fi look as well as cuts in the metal. This has a lot more depth to it. Okay, so those are all selected now. Go in and use the inset face tool. Pulling it in. Okay. I'm going back to the extrude tool and extrude all of them. Go in. Okay. Back to the object mode. That looks much better. Okay, so now I'm going to go to edit mode and basically going to add some more edges to this with the loop cut. So I'm going to go to each edge, add some more detail. Basically all the inners, the edge of the other side as well. Oops, a little bit over here. Okay. So I'm going to put a little bit there. All right. Basically I did those two outer sections. I think that's good enough. All right, that looks good. You start hanging some of these other ones out of the way. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to hide some more objects just to get out of the way. And I'm actually going to add a plug to this section here. So I'm going to frame selected, get a little closer. Zoom in a little bit. The number 1 key, make it easier. Okay. So I'm going to go to F key, create. I'm going to also use the circle key and try to center that into the center of this object. I'm going to pull this out, hold it with the left mouse button, pull out. All right. It's about right about there. All right, now I'm going to turn it Let's see what I got going on here. Okay, I'm going to make it the other way. Okay. Select the right mouse button to accept. Actually, use the G key with the Y to move it. All right, that fills the hole. Zoom a little bit, let's see what you're doing. Use the G key, maneuver it, try to center it exactly within the area. Okay, so now I'm going to add the operation smart apply from hard ops and go back in. I'm going to get rid of the weighted as well as the mirror, and then I'm going to change the offset to 0.005. Be nice. Okay, see, apply. So now I can go ahead and actually modify this object as well. So go to edit mode, select the top poly, and we're going to inset face. Okay. Now we're going to use the extrude in, push it in. Okay. It's looking good. Again, inset face. This time I'm going to extrude back out the other way. Okay. So that's a design to it. So I'm going to hit the lines, edge tool. Basically, what I'm going to do is bevel this, give it some edge to it, add some segments. That looks good. I'm going to do the same thing here. The bevel, some segments. Okay. That looks really good. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and remove some polys. Edit mode. Use the box tool to select the top. Okay, got it all, pretty much. Delete it. No use in having all those extra polys for nothing. F key, so it's one poly. Keep going back to object mode now, see what I'm doing. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and use operations from hard ops to convert to spec. And so that way I can actually clear the modifiers. Sometimes you want to keep the stuff for throughout the whole process. Sometimes you want to get rid of it. Okay, so now I'm going to delete those extra objects now that I've actually set the changes. Again, recommend to make more copies of this, so if you want to go back you can once you make some hard decisions what you want to do. Okay, again, get rid of more of this stuff. Check to make sure the modifiers have already been applied before I delete them. Okay, so now I'm going to mirror this section to the other side. So it automatically was on the X. I guess it doubled it. You see it on the left corner there. It actually has the double of that unit. So I'm going to go ahead and, of course, remove that from the mirror before I add the modifier. Okay, so I removed the X mirror. Now it looks good. It's a little bit off again, just like all the other objects. So to fix this, I'm going to add the modifiers to this and select the object and move it. So here I'm going to go to edit mode and select part of the object and then actually use Control and the plus button multiple times to get all the polys selected. I'm going to move this on the y-axis with the G key. Alright, that looks good. I'm going to actually select this object and rotate it. That looks good. I'm actually going to use the fluid again, so I'll hit the F key and select the circle tool and cut through. All the way. Okay, that looks good. Okay, now again I'm going to add a creation on this object as well with the F key. Hit the circle again. I'm going to create a cap for this. Alright, so pull it out a little bit. Turn it so I can see what's going on with it. So use the middle mouse button. Okay, pull it back through. Okay, that looks good. So now I'm going to use the G key to move it into place. But you got to zoom in a little bit. Okay, that looks good. Okay, now I'm going to actually add in, right click of course, and add the Smart Apply with hard ups. And then I'm going to get rid of the weighted and the second mirror, and then I'm going to go in to modify the outer bevel. So I'm going to go in and change that from 0.01 to 0.007. Apply. That looks good. Go back to edit mode. Now I'm going to actually change some of the details here. So I'm going to select the top one, hit the inset, bring it in. Okay. I'm going to use the extrude tool to move it inward. Just on the y-axis, I'm pulling it through. Good. So now go back to object mode, see what it looks like. Okay, that looks good. We're going to go to edit mode again. I'm going to actually select some of the edges. Add a little bit of bevel to this. Hit the bevel, pull it, both areas. Add a few lines. 5 on that one. Okay, that looks good. Much better. Okay, so now I'm going to select this object. I'm going to duplicate it to the other side. So now I'm going to take this object and go to Hard Ops and mirror it. So I can make a duplication of it. So I'm going to use the left side to make the right side show up. Alright. So now I'm going to actually apply the mirror on this object. So apply. So now I'm going to actually go to edit mode and select the object. So actually pull it in closer. Again, it's just a little bit off center for some reason. So I'm going to select the polys. And then I'm going to actually hit the Control plus key and continuously until I get the whole thing selected. Okay, so I select the whole object and I'm now actually going to separate it. So now that I selected the object, I'm actually going to go to edit mode and select the whole thing again with Control plus key. Use the G key on the Y, move it in. So basically I'm going in and actually taking one side and deleting it and working on one side only to make it easier. I'll just duplicate this to the other side afterwards. Okay. So now I'm actually going to clean this object up a little bit. I got some extra lines there, as you can see. So I'm going to select those edges and dissolve edges. So I double clicked them and dissolved them. Again, I'm going to go around the whole thing and do that basically. So I have a clean object, double click. Hold the shift key, double click. Delete, dissolve edges. So now I'm going to go in and actually select the other object and hide it basically with the H key. So I could actually look at the back end of this thing. So go back to edit mode again. And I'm going to look at the back side now to see what other lines that we might have to delete. See, there's some at the very back end there. So I'm going to actually go ahead and select now the polygon itself and select the edges to make it easier. Seems like it's a little difficult to do otherwise. So I'm going to select all that. And basically delete this section, and then I can make a poly. Okay, so I deleted it. I'm actually going to go in and select the edge itself, and then hit the P key. Okay, double click. Okay, hit the F key. There we go. All right, so that's it for that poly. So now I'm going to actually go in and delete the other side and get that all cleared. So that way it'll be much cleaner. So actually unselect the one side and select everything else, and we'll hit the delete key. Make sure you got them all. All right, so delete. Actually, I'm going to go back around and select again. Okay, hit delete faces. See, there's some edges there. I'm going to reselect them on the side view, go through view so I can actually delete everything. Okay, hit the delete key again. Faces. There we go. So now we got one polygon basically. That's what we're looking at, and we're going to extrude this polygon to get it back to where it was so it's a clean object. So go to the extrude and push through. Okay. Okay, select all the polys for this object. So I'm actually going to flip because I know that it went backwards. That's what I just did there. Now go back into mode. There we go. Looks good. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and select those two faces and inset faces to give it some edge. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the extrude key, and I'm going to actually go extrude along edge so that way they both go in at the same time. There we go. Looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and select the intersections and basically inset the faces. Do that on both sides. Okay. So that looks good. Same thing on this side. Okay, that looks good. See how that looks. Okay. So the edges still look a little rounded. I'm going to add a little bit more detail. So I'm going to do some loop cuts on that. Add some detail to it. Get close to the edge. Same thing on the top section. The back section. Okay. A little bit there as well. A little bit in there. And then back that area. This will make it a lot better, the definition. so go back to object mode, see what it looks like. Okay, the edges look a lot better there. So here I'm going to go to transparency mode so I can see what I'm doing when I do the knife tool. Okay, go to edit mode. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is going to add some more detail to this. We use the knife tool. So we actually hit the Z key to cut all the way through, otherwise it'll just do the front faces. So I'm going to continue to cut through sections. So I click one time and pull it down, so that way it's a line all the way through. I'm going to do this in a few places to get some extra detail on this object, so I can actually basically adjust some things. Continue to use the Z key to cut through all the way. Okay, looks good. Another one. So add some more detail. There. Z key again. And a section there. Okay. So now I'm going to select some of the sections with the selection tool. The top 4 points, and make sure it's all the way through. So the whole thing moves downward to give it a cut look. And I'm actually going to move these things out a little bit just so they're not in the way. So it gives a different spacing between the top and the bottom. I'm going to actually select a few more, move it. Same thing with the other side, move it over. This will give it a nice look to it. So it's not consistently the same as the top. So I'm going to select that, hit the shift key, make sure I'm going all the way through. Now I'm going to use the G key and move it up. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the object mode to see what this looks like. Alright, that looks good. So now I'm going to go back to edit mode and select the polys in the middle there. Use the circular tool, go through all the way to the other side, select all of it. Okay. Now I'm going to inset these one more time. Get the inset faces, go in one more time. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go and delete. Basically, I did it on both sides. I'm going to go in and actually delete those faces, and then I'm going to select all the edges on the edge there, all the way around. So I double click, and I'm going to go to the point mode, and then I'm going to go to the actual top view or side view, and I'm going to go through where I can see transparency, and I'm going to actually go in and scale that all in one axis so it actually could all be exactly straight. Okay, hit the scale key, use the green thing to go toward the center so everything lines up straight. Okay, so we're going to do that on both sides. We're going to do it on the other side as well. So again, double click the edge, hit points. Now they're all selected. Again, same thing, scale inward, so it's all completely straight on that axis. Okay, that's it for that. Take the transparency off. Now I'm actually going to now select the whole thing again. Hit the F key. That way it's completely straight. Same thing on the other end, other side. Double click, hit the shift key. Hit the F key. Now you got both sides. Okay, that looks a lot better. Now it's nice and straight. Now see what it looks like with the other objects. So unhide those with Alt H. Okay. So now I'm going to go in and actually edit this object a little bit more. I don't like the fact that it's all the way inside. You can't see it. It doesn't give a lot of good detail. So I'm going to maneuver this thing inward. So go to edit mode, go to point mode, use the selection lasso. So basically I'll move this outward so you can really see that detail. Try to line it up as straight as you can. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to take the back end and bring it in too. Let's see what I'm doing first. Okay, that looks a lot better. So again, go see-through mode. I'm going to go in and edit mode and get the back section. Lasso tool again. Let's bring that closer. Make sure your magnet tool's off. Okay. Again, move it in. Try to keep it as straight as you can. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit more detail to this object. I want to add some more cuts into this to give it just a different look to it. Use the knife tool again with the Z selected so it cuts all the way through. So I'm going to put a line there. Again, click once and then go all the way down so it's a line. And again, see how if you hold it down what happens. So you do it again. Okay, let go. Alright. So now I'm going to go back to the selection tool, the lasso. Make sure it's selected. And select the top sections. Hold the shift key down. Okay, use the G key to move it. Move it up a little bit more. Okay. Again, go back to the side view. Select those other sections of points. Use the G key, move it up. And in. Okay, maneuver that a little bit more. Okay. Go back to object mode, see what this looks like. Looking better. So I'm going to double select the top polygon and completely select the whole thing all the way through. And then I'm going to select inverse, and then I'm going to delete the faces. So basically I got rid of all the edges. So now I'm going to select the line again. Go to edge mode. I'm going to actually select the faces. Same here. Double select it. Delete faces. So now I got the edge again. So I'm going to redo this again. So now I'm going to extrude it out. Bring it out. Okay. I'm going to do inset. Do the same thing on the other side. Inset. Okay. I'm actually going to add a cylinder. And then I'm going to rescale this. Change the size. 32 is fine. Let's shrink it down. About 0.13 millimeters. A little bit smaller on the depth as well. So now I'm going to actually take this object and move it. So actually select the object itself. Select all. Control plus all the way through. I'm going to G key, move it, get closer to the front. Again, I'm going to go back and scale it with the S key. Move it in closer. G key. Rotate it first, the red, 90 degrees. So start it and then type in 90, enter. Now hit the G key, move it in. Make sure you take the magnet tool off. Okay. So here you're going to select the number pad, 3 to the side, move it into the center. Okay. Now you select the object. So you gotta right click and make sure you shade smooth. So make sure you go to normals and select auto smooth. Make sure that's on. So I'm going to select that first. Select that second. Now do it. The difference. So deletes it. Now go back to polygon mode. Select all the polys. The center section. Hit the polygon. Select. Do an inset. That looks good. Same thing with the other side. Do an inset. That looks good. Okay, that looks really good. I'm actually going to go in and looks a lot better. The edge. Go back to edit mode. And we'll select the polys. Well, first we'll actually add in a little detail on the center and some on that side as well. Okay. Add some on the top as well. The other side as well. Okay, that's a much better edge. Okay, so I'm going to add some more detail to this. Go back to edit mode. Add a bevel to this. Go back to edge mode. Double select. Shift key. And we're going to go to bevel. Hold it down, pull it out. Okay. Add some segments. About 6. Okay, same thing on the other side. Double click. Hit the bevel key. Bring it in. Go up to about 6 again. Okay. That looks much better. Go back to edit mode. Select the polys. Actually select the edge all around. Double select. Okay. Enters 2. Now let's hit the bevel key. Actually, I'm going to hit the actual extrude. Bring it out. Now go to the inner. Bring it in. Much better. Same thing with the other side. Okay, first I'm going to add some more loop cuts to the side here. Some of the other side. Okay. Same thing here. In the inner. That looks a lot better. So I'm not going to hide the other objects and see how that looks. It's looking really good. Except for it's inside the object itself. Of course, I got to move it in now. So I'm going to select it. Go to the top view. And actually go to the see-through mode so I can see what I'm doing. I'll make sure it goes all the way to the end. G key, select all. G key all the way to the end so you can see it. Okay, that looks good. All right. That looks much better. So now I got it selected. I'm going to go to fast carve and actually select the Y. I'm sorry, the negative Y. Okay, so I'm going to deselect everything except for the other side. Select some of it and do Control plus key continuously until you get all the way through the object. All right, there you go. Now I'm going to hit the G key and move that on the Y axis. Bring it in. Okay, that looks good. Back to object mode. Okay. Okay, let's hide that object right there. So now I'm going to use the creation tool with F key, with Fluent. So I'm in creation. Center this on the pivot point area and pull it out. Okay. And then G key to center it. You pull it to the side, see what you're doing. Plus you're going to be on the back side, this one. It's going to be inside. Okay, so right click, hit the G key on the Y, pull it out. Okay, that looks good. So hit the Q key. So now I'm going to actually do a smart apply. Clean it all up. I'm going to change the extra amount here to 0.005. Get a little bit more of a harder edge. So now I'm going to apply. Yep. And go ahead and get rid of the weighted normal. And also the mirror. I'm going to hit the fast carve. Actually, I'm going to select the mirror and use the Z on the Z axis in fast carve and apply the mirror. Move edit mode. Select the polygon and hit Control plus key. Go all the way through. Okay, now I'm going to go to the top view. And I'm going to actually pull that out with the G key on the Y again. Okay. It's centered. That looks good. So we'll go back to edit mode, to object mode. Hide those. So now I'm going to actually go to object mode and select this object. I'm going to Control C to copy it. So now I'm going to go back in here and actually copy and paste that extra object in here. So you have a second object now. Paste. Okay, so you got two objects. Let's hide one, the first one, and go to the second one. Okay, so this is the second object, so I'm going to go in, go to edit mode. I'm actually just going to select those sections there, and the selections on the other side as well. I use this section to actually manipulate another object. So I'm going to select everything else in verse, and I'm going to delete all the faces. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and edit mode on that object that I've already created. Select all those polys with the shift key. And now I'm going to separate the selection. So it's its own object, of course. Hide everything else. So now I'm going to go back to edit mode. I'm going to add some lines to it. Loop cut. Bring it down on both sides. Line it up. I'll bring that one up. Same with that side. Bring it up. Try to line it up so it's even. Let's go back and do one side and then mirror again if you want exact. Okay. So I'm going to select those and the other middle section and extrude out. Okay. So give it some depth. Select those and set faces. Right on the edge of that. Okay. Pull it in. Use the G key to maneuver it. Just has to be inside so you don't see it, what we're trying to do here. Okay, select the actual points on the inner edge. Now we're going to maneuver this with the G key so it's more rounded. And we'll also select these sections here, the intersections. Those sections there, those sections there. And use the G key to maneuver this as well, so it's a little bit more rounded. With those two, use G key again. And same with these. Just trying to get this to look a little bit more rounded. Hit G key. Okay. Looks better. Let's select the back points. Bring it out. Select all these. Select the bottom ones. Again. Move around. Use your mouse middle button to get around. Select those back ones. Okay. Go back to the top view with the number 7 pad. Move that out. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to go to the top view again, number 7, get closer. Use the G key, move that to the very edge. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to use loop cut to add some more polys to the edges of this. Like all those areas there. Go to object mode, see how that looks. Okay. So now I want to close this up. Go back to edit mode. Select more, the Control plus key, and we're going to delete the faces. Now we're actually going to go in and get rid of some of the stuff we don't need. So we're going to select the top polys, delete faces, select the bottom polys, delete faces. So all we're using is this little closure. Actually, I'm going to close this up. So select the points and hit the F key. Okay, that looks good. Hit those points, hit the F key, and then we're going to extrude out. I'm going to use the G key to maneuver this. Rotate it. The blue. Okay. So make sure it's all the way through and scale it down a little bit with the grain, the y-axis. Hit the G key again, maneuver it. You can try to make that symmetrical, so it's nice and not all oblong. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so I'm going to make this into a 4-point poly too. Okay, now I'm going to use loop cuts for the center. And a few sections there. So now I'm actually going to go in and select the edge on top, left side, deselect everything but the edge there. Same thing here. Those sections. Actually, I'm going to manually do this. Same with the other side. Select the edges all the way around. Okay. I'm going to give a little bit of a bevel there. Add some points. Okay. Same thing on the bottom. Bevel it. Give it some segments. Same thing here. I'm actually going to go back and do the whole thing there. Do some segments. Probably about 5 or 6, maybe 8. Yeah, that looks good. Gives it some roundness to it. Back to object mode. Looks good. Make sure you hit the shade smooth, auto smooth. So you're going to use a loop cut closer to the end, give it a little bit better definition in both areas. Well, that looks a lot better. There we go. See how it looks with the other object? Okay, that looks nice. To add a little bit more of a edge there as well. A line right there. Bring it closer. There we go. So now I'm going to get rid of the other side. Except the below section, hit the Control plus key and delete the faces. Okay. So now we're going to go back to the object mode. Select that. And we're going to go to Fast Carve. So we're going to select the, take out the X, put it on the Y. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to add a little bit more detail on the edge there, do a loop cut, just for the very tip. Okay, looks good. Mirror is working, so it's actually added to both objects. I'm going to go in and apply the mirror. Okay, so I'm going to go in and actually go to edit mode and hit the Control plus key all the way through. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the top view with the keypad number 7, and I'm actually going to maneuver this into place. So use the G key on the Y. Okay, get it close to the line there. And see how that looks. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So it's a little bit stick hitting the actual object a little bit. Got to move it a little bit more. I'm going to go to the top view, number 7. Zoom in. Maneuver it so you can see what you're doing. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go back to polygon mode again, select it all. Hit the Control plus key all the way through. So you get the whole thing selected. Okay, select it all. Use the G key to maneuver in place. Okay. Okay, so now I need to select the handle piece and move it. It's a little bit off center, so I'm going to select it and then hit the Control plus key. And I'm going to go to the top view, number pad 7. And I'm going to move this on the y-axis. So G key, Y. Move it upward. Okay. Go back to another view to see what it looks like. Okay, now I'm going to select the other object, the center thing, and go to edit mode. And now I'm actually going to delete the top piece. So I'm going to select those areas there, hit delete faces, and now I'm going to go in and actually double click on the edge and hit the F key. I'm actually going to get this and push it inward, basically adding in some more details. So now I'm going to actually select the edge again, and this time I'm going to double click it, make sure it's selected, and hit the bevel key. So I'm going to put a bevel to that. Okay, add a little bit of segments to it. Do about 5. Okay, that looks good. Hit the outer edge, hit bevel, put some edge to that. Okay, that's starting to look good. Okay, now actually I'm going to go back to object mode to see how that looks. Okay, that looks good. Now I see that part of the arm is actually a little bit off. I need to maneuver that a little bit more in. So I'm going to actually go in and select that in edit mode again, and then I'm going to select some of the polys and hit the Control plus key all the way through. And we're going to go back in the top view and move this with the G key on the Y. It's a little bit far in that way, so we're going to go back the other way. So G key, Y. Okay, now I'm going to look on the other side, see how it looks. Okay, looks like we have it. So now I'm actually going to unhide all the other objects to see what it looks like. Go to object mode. I'm going to actually hide the camera and the light. And select those and go into view, frame all, frame selected actually. See what this looks like. So, I mean, I'm liking it. Now, the next steps is to actually add some cables. So now I'm going to actually use Fluent again and add a section to the center of this with the C key. So I'm going to actually pull it out. This is where the cables will be going into. So I'm actually pulling it out with the left mouse button. Alright, I'm liking that. Alright, so I'm going to change the radius a little bit. Again, hit the left mouse, hit the resolution down a little bit. Doesn't need to be 64. Let's go to about 38. Looks good. Alright, so now that that's created, going to right click with my mouse so I create the object. I'm going to go in and change the actual the amount of bevel on this thing. So the outer bevel. First I'm going to actually apply Smart Apply with Hard Ops, and I'm going to go back into the outer bevel now And actually get rid of the weighted, of course, and I'm going to bring that down a little bit. It's 0.01 right now. I'm going to put 0.004. Okay, that's much better. Keep it in object mode, and then I'm going to apply. I'm actually now going to go and select that and go to edit mode. And I'm going to actually put a hole into this thing is what I'm going to do. So hit edit mode. Select it. Okay. I'm actually hit the top poly, and I'm going to basically set that a little bit in, and I'm going to extrude it inward. So pull it in. Okay, there we go. Looks good. Now I have a lot of extra detail on the back end I want to get rid of. So I'm going to go to object mode and hide some of these things. So go back to object mode. I'm going to hide this with the H. Hide that with the H. Okay. So select that again, go to edit mode. Okay, now I'm going to select the very top or the back polygon and then hit plus and control key. Select those areas, delete the faces. And I'm actually going to select the edge again, and then I'm going to actually double click it with the shift key, and then I'm going to actually hit the F key to close it. Alright, so that's it. That covers us and gets rid of a lot of extra polys for no need. So I'm actually going to move these on the x-axis to bring it closer inward. So it actually goes into the other object. Okay. Going back to the edge here, I'm going to double click it. I'm going to bevel this too. Give it a little bit of an edge. So bring it out. Hit a couple segments, about 4. Okay, that looks a lot better. Back to object mode. Okay. And hide the other object. Okay, so now I'm going to take this whole object and bring it back into the other object. So I'm going to copy everything and paste it into the other object so they all come together. So that's pretty much it for that. The next phase will be to create the monitor.